Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Fazio, and today I am talking to Mandy Friend Gigliotti. She is a fierce entrepreneur, and we'll talk about the power of Jesus in her life in regards to her business, her breakdowns, and her family. Let's get started.
Angela Fazio is an industry powerhouse who has overseen 40,000 homes sold and $9 billion in production. And Kristen Cantrell is one of the nation's most accomplished team leaders, helping thousands of agents build their businesses. They are passionate about educating, encouraging, and empowering moms in real estate. Our next episode starts now.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Hello.
There's my co-host, Kristen and Mandy. Welcome, you guys. I'm really excited for our audience today. We have a fabulous guest in Mandy, and we'll be talking about all kinds of things that I know you guys will relate to and enjoy. So, Mandy, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm from upstate New York, and I have a real estate business that started back when I was 22, so we're almost 10 years into the business. And my husband's a chiropractor, so we have his chiropractic business. Together we own a daycare right next to his practice, and then I also have a podcast. And most importantly, I have two little babies. I've got a 2.5-year-old son and a 4.5-year-old daughter.
That's a lot.
So much stuff. I love it.
I need a chiropractor right now. I hurt my ribs in January and they've never been the same.
With quarantine, everyone's putting their bodies in different ways. Everything's out of whack. So yeah, he's definitely still in need very much.
I think my commute would be a little too far. Arizona,
upstate New York.
Sounds like we need a girls trip.
Seriously.
Yes.
So you own those 3 businesses, and let's start with something I think is fascinating because I don't know how to do this. You need to teach me. You only spend about 30 hours in your businesses a week. How do you do that?
So the joke is I've just had a lot of breakdowns to start to realize what this perfect time is. And one of the quotes that I heard this morning again, and I've heard it all the time, is the purpose of business is to fund the perfect life. And so often I get I'm so good at business. I'm so good at it that's my default. And I found myself going back to business at all times. But I realized the way I was showing up with my family when I was working 60 hours a week, I was on edge all the time. And then I would work 40 hours a week and it was getting a little bit better. And then I would try to cut back. And I found that this 30 hours a week is this really beautiful balance for me that not even am I working, but that's when I'm out of the home. Mm-hmm. That's when I'm working out. That's when I'm really making having it's goofy, but me time where I'm literally just doing what I need to be doing. And that includes everything from, training and supporting my teams to recruiting to doing my own personal training and all of that as well.
That's fascinating.
It really is.
I love to work too. I love to work.
I know.
But I can be out of control sometimes too.
Yeah, and I think that I've started to love to work even more once I got really clear on only doing the things that I truly love to do. Mm-hmm. And that is what I kind of started to narrow in on. So for example, in real estate, I am so good. I love meeting new people. I love going on listing presentations, buyer presentations, but I got to the point where it was too much. It was so much to do on top of everything that even though I loved to do it, I loved who I was when I wasn't doing it even more.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think it's if you even take everybody back to when you were 24 and how much you were working and your breakdown, share that, because I think that is such a big reason why we're even talking about you working 30 hours a week and taking only 30 hours a week away from your family.
Yeah, so it all started. So I was 22. I was this Division I athlete. I was playing I was playing crazy amounts of sports. I was so disciplined, and I got into the real world and carried over that intensity where the only thing I knew was to work. And so I started working. My real estate business grew pretty fast. When you're young, when you're new, heavy buyers, which meant I was traveling, going back and forth, doing 1 million showings a day, working constantly. Some people are like, you weren't working 100 hours a week. I'm sure I was working 100 hours.
No, I was.
like I never stopped. And so fast forward to a year where I was doing about 6 million in sales at an average price point of 150,000, heavy buyers, and also was very immature in business to know how to systematize. And I just gave everything, didn't set any boundaries. And I was looking down the barrel of that year, and I qualified to play in the World Cup for Team Canada. So I was training 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. My husband was opening up his own chiropractic office, which meant we had to buy a building, renovate the building for him to open up. Older sister was having a baby. Younger sister was winning the national championship at Chapel Hill. And then 2 weeks after World Cup, which is when you're actually gone for 20, 21 days, was my husband and our wedding. And so I had all of this and was like, you just hustle, you just work harder. And I don't know if I shared this with you guys, but I had to get a physical before the World Cup. And I don't go to doctors. It was time for doctors. And they did the test and my blood pressure was high. She's like, oh, honey, you're not cleared. Your blood pressure is too high. And I'm like, my blood, what? And I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, I'm fine. I need to go. And she's like, honey, I think your blood pressure might be a little high. And, that didn't wake me up or anything. And I just kept hustling until I came back after World Cup. And I had realized that my team had supported me on the way there while I was gone. And I also realized that I didn't have to work these crazy hours. And I also had kind of the balance between who I was when I was playing lacrosse and playing sports and not heavy into my business for those 3 weeks to who I was returning to be, which was crazy town, which was crazy hours, which was who's my next client and how can I support them and what's going on with that inspection release and where's closing and that kind of anxiety that until there was this total shift, I didn't recognize it as how it was showing up for me. And I won this really big award that I had been dreaming of and visualizing. And after I won the award, nothing changed. And after I realized that nothing changed in this award and these accolades that I'd been chasing for so long, in order to accomplish it, I didn't like who I had to become, became very relevant, really kind of just smacked me upside the head to say, what are you doing then? And the spiral led to hurting relationships. It led to me attempting to leave my husband and my husband saying, this isn't how a marriage should be. And it wasn't. And thankfully, I had some phenomenal people in my world who said, Mandy, you need to pray. You just need to pray. And I was like, but like, what do I do? And they said,
you didn't know God. You didn't know Jesus yet, right?
No Jesus. Didn't know Jesus. And I get like emotional just talking about it, but I was literally in my office and I said, well, what do I do? And they said, talk to this guy. And I was like, well, what do I say? And they said, well, ask for help, ask for guidance. And so that night there was a slew of other things, but basically I got to the point where I just said, okay, sky, moon, God, whoever you are, fill me up with whatever it is that I need to make this next decision, to fight for my marriage or to just start over, because the way hasn't been working. And out of nowhere, I just felt this love for my husband that literally made me cough. I just felt like I was choking on it. I was bawling my eyes out. I was a wreck. And I just knew from that moment that God said, listen, it's your husband. It is me. Let's do this and let's start anew. And that's been our journey now. And we have put God and Jesus at the forefront of everything that we do. And that, as hard as it was, because it wasn't like all of a sudden everything was great. Like, we had a lot of baggage that we kind of had to unpack, that I think I'm still unpacking, right? And I think I'll forever unpack. It's not this like easy, glorious road, but it's a road that's the truest road, and that has gotten me to the point where I've realized how not important accolades are, and how not important it is to think what everyone else is doing around me, and that is how I derive my worth. My accolades, like all those things that used to drive my worth, don't anymore. And
thank God, right?
Praise God, because I especially in this industry, especially in business, it's so easy to get wrapped up into it. And you have to be very intentional about delegating and intentional about how you spend your time, because we revert to those comforts of business very, very easily. So that's where I'm at.
So good. I will never get sick of hearing the stories about how God reveals himself to people. And, I didn't get saved till I was almost 30. And so I distinctly remember pre-Angela, and it's the spiral that I just talked about it yesterday with my husband on Midweek Mind Freak. It's that spiral that you get yourself into. You seem to be an extremist like I am,
Yeah.
It's like there or there, right?
Yeah.
And so I just love to hear those stories. And you told Kristen and I about how that you can say it's the breakdown, but it's the breakdown that brought you to God.
Yes.
That changed everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exciting. That is so cool.
It's so good.
And the other thing I love that you said is it's like Jesus doesn't come into your life and everything's better, because you've had other breakdowns since then.
Mm-hmm.
Many breakdowns. I mean, for us, when we started, so I was building my business, my husband was building up his practice, and specifically in real estate, I'm to the point where I'm highly leveraged. So we brought on the administrative team. We brought on, the operation. So we have the operations team, and then we have the sales team. And you step out of buyers, and you're like, who am I? What do I do with my time? And they're like, oh, this is good, but I'm not important anymore. And then you step out of sellers, and you're like, well, who am I? Oh, now I'm not important anymore. And then you go into running a team, and you realize, like, I'm a horrible leader because I've been able to cover up my lack of leadership with the fact that I'm so good at selling real estate. And so then at like every single layer, new level, new devil, right? Like every single level, I get to find something more that I have to work on. And I feel so now whenever I get to a breakthrough, I'm like, okay, how can I see this? Like everything I'm feeling in quarantine right now, I just view it like the problems don't get easier. You just get stronger, and you just kind of view them different ways to be able to move past them and learn as much as you can with a humble heart.
Kristen and I have been talking about that subject a lot lately, like, because we're both in a new space, so our insecurities go, what? They go way up to the top. And I'm like, what? Since when did I become so insecure? It's just the process of learning something new, getting accustomed to something better and higher.
Yes, exactly.
We just had that conversation this morning.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I have to share with you, I was just on mute. My house just went like, my pool guy walked past, my dogs went crazy. My son's like, come here. And anyways, I'm so glad there's a mute on here.
So you talked a lot about relinquishing control. That seems to be a lesson I need to learn over and over and over. But even in the last progression of what you were just talking about, you said, okay, I'm not a buyer's agent anymore. Who am I? So talk about your journey on relinquishing control.
I would say the key for me to relinquishing control is to understand that everything we do, every time, everything we spend our time on is our decision. And I found that I am a big control freak because I want things done my way because that is better for everyone. Everyone will be better when that copy on that Facebook ad is right, and my way is the right way. And I started to think like this until I brought people into my world, and the only other option that I had was I either have to do all of it or I got to be completely out, because I found that when I was dipping my toe in, I was pulling the rug out from under them for them to be able to do their work that they wanted. And so it was two sides. It was empowering my people to show me that they're capable, but then it was also the realization that no, physically I can no longer be a buyer's agent. Physically, I can no longer be a listing agent, because if I am that, I am not showing up for my husband the way I want to show up for him. I'm not showing up for my kids the way I want to show up for him. So it was this balance, and I had to find different motivators that I care so much about my team, and I care so much about all of the pieces within the team, but to realize, one, I cannot control this anymore because I need to be a better mom, and I don't have to control it because the people that I've brought in are actually better than me. And they're not better when they first start, but now my buyer's agent's 20 times better than I am. Listing agent, 20 times better than I am. Like, they've gotten to that point because I empowered them to do so. So those are the two keys for me with relinquishing control.
I love that. And I hear that from so many moms, and it's still so hard to swallow for me for some reason. You know, like even I remember, Angela, you talk about this a lot, like the day that you guys decided to hire your first transaction coordinator. It's like, oh, like that was amazing, and how much it allowed you to do after that. And I feel like a lot of the moms that we've had on this show, like, continually talk about that, you know? So
it's necessary because God created us to be in community, and we all have different functions. And I realize that the better that you can empower the people around you and bring out what God has given them and gifted them, then you're all more blessed. That's why I freaking love, I love the idea of EXP, because of that very same thing. We take all of our strengths and we help everybody to be the best version of themselves in every single way. And that is the order of it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be an island.
Yes. And I think what I've also learned too is why we are stuck in not relinquishing control is because we are expecting the worst case. So, goofy example, I was nervous about my nanny doing my laundry, okay? And I was like, what if she sees my undies? And I bet you've never talked about undies on the show, so we're going there. What if? And then I was like, what if? What's the worst thing?
Nannies have undies too.
Nannies have undies. And so I'm using the nanny underwear example as like, we always go to worst case. If I hire that TC, she's going to leave her job, and then I'm not going to be able to support her. So then she's going to be homeless. Like, we go down these paths and we're just assuming the worst instead of living in faith and assuming the best. And when you're the people like we are, where I know it, I can tell, like we're over communicators. I'm going to be like, today's day 2 and here's how I'm feeling. That by, let's say worst case situation happens and we're 90 days down the road, we've been talking about it for 90 days. So I think yes, they say it and it's hard to do, but that's how I help people kind of move into action, by thinking about the worst, going there, and then realizing the worst isn't that bad compared to the benefit that is more likely than not to happen.
That's so true.
Yeah. And about the communication thing, that's one of the things with our staff and our, and everybody's, to be unclear is unkind. I learned that from Dave Ramsey a long time ago. To be unclear is unkind. And if you can continue that, I mean, the worst case scenario probably will never happen if you're communicating well and you're, being positive and you're looking to build up and not tear down and things of that nature. And you just seem like a totally positive person.
You really are. And your podcast, I was telling you guys earlier, I started listening to it today. It was really good. You have a good radio voice.
Oh, thanks. So many people have said that, but I really enjoy it. And I think that's where the podcast has been such a great piece for me. One of my, how you set your intentions for the year. And last year, I just knew God was calling me to speak and to share. And but I didn't know what it looked like. And like I said, I am anti-accolades. I don't want to be like, I'm going to be asked to speak in front of 10 million people. Like, that to me wasn't where I wanted to go. And I wanted it to be something that I had control over. And so my intent was to launch an episode, and then once that episode got launched, to do a weekly podcast. And all of that was under the umbrella of finding my voice. So last year was find your voice. What is it that you want to talk about and that you're passionate about? And I found that this exact topic of really being purposeful about your time so that you can show up the best you possibly can has just been something that I'm drawn to, and I find a lot of people are relating to in a just a beautiful way.
Tell me about your kids a little bit. What are they into? Are they into work?
They're like, this one? You have one like this.
I've got one just like that, like just delicious. So I joke that my husband's one of 4 boys, and they're all crazy. And we don't know. I just bless his mother nonstop. I'm like, I don't know how you did it. And we joke that his traits in conjunction with my traits are a bit of a challenge with the kids. My daughter, she's 4.5, and she's sassy. She's brilliant. She went through a really challenging phase, 2, 3. She was just defiant and made me cry every day. And now she's in this just beautiful, she goes, you just get what you get, Mom. You know, you get what you get and you don't get upset. Like, I think that's from Daniel Tiger maybe, but like, she just is kind and sweet, and I'm loving this phase. And I say that because I also want you to know the challenge I'm having with my 2.5-year-old son, who just does like, there was, I sent you guys this. They were hitting each other with a dead mouse that my cat killed.
Yeah.
And they found, and he kept touching the mouse. And I'm like, Amico, don't touch the mouse. Don't touch the mouse. And he would just touch it. And I'm like, so he's a bit of a challenge, but oh my gosh, they're so fun. I soak them up, and I really find how clear it is when I'm not entering into mommyhood in a kind way, which honestly was yesterday. They're not changing. The way I'm showing up is changing. When I am yelling at them, they've literally done the exact same thing 40 days prior, and it hasn't bothered me the way that it triggers me in certain ways. And I use those times that I'm freaking out or losing my temper, that's a litmus test to be like, okay, what happened? You know, and I will tell you, my phone, I put it on my husband's hood yesterday, and my husband drove off. My phone went on the highway and got run over yesterday. So that was probably the key trigger that started it.
Yeah.
But either way, I was not Mom of the Year yesterday.
No, listen, I'll give you a run for your money any day of the week. I've got 6.
I've got 6. I've got 2. And I think that's it. Is we all feel it, we all know it, and the more we can just learn every single day and you know, get better in our own ways for ourselves is you know, what I think we should all strive for.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, you also are have a passion. I think we didn't talk about this before, but this is one of my hot buttons. I like to talk about it all the time. Is the importance of dating your husband.
Yes.
And I read that you date your husband. So what does that look like in your family? Because women need to date their husbands.
Okay.
I want to even back up one more thing, because you said something that I loved. You said, can you replace your name with? So you have to share that, because
that too.
To start, it was like, I love that. I wrote it down, and I'm like, I need to like always think about that.
Yeah. So the verse that was the reason that I kind of hit rock bottom. You know, when you like hit rock bottom and then you're like, oh, just kidding, there's lower you can go. So I was reading, and it was in I think it's called Jesus Calling, but it's also referred to as the Love Dare. And it's a series of dares that you go through yourself as a way to become closer to your spouse. And what it is one of the questions is, can you replace your name with the verse, love is patient, love is kind, love is not boastful, love does not envy, and all of that. So could I say, Mandy is, what is it? Love is, what did I just say?
Patient, kind.
Mandy is patient, Mandy is kind, Mandy is not boastful, Mandy does not envy. And it struck me so hard, because the last thing I was to my husband was patient. The last thing I was to my husband is kind. The last thing, I could not say that I was love. And if I wasn't living in love, how can I say that I gave my best to my marriage?
Right. Oh my gosh, it's so true.
And so now I will say, we've done the 5 love languages, we've done all those things, but like, I'm a challenge. Like, my husband is a challenge as well. We joke that iron sharpens iron is, wait, was your husband wearing a shirt that said iron sharpens iron?
That's like one of our favorite verses. Yes.
And so I, of course, when I started watching, I was like, okay, my people. But so iron sharpens iron with us, in that we always felt that when we would be, you know, sharpening each other, for example, that meant we weren't a good fit, because we don't look like other relationships. Like, I remember I would walk in and someone was fighting, and I'm like, that was a fight? Like, was that a fight? Like, you know?
We were at a fight.
I was talking. And the reason I say that is just because we had to get really clear on what it looked like for us, and also realizing that we're both very strong personalities, but we also do need to surrender to the other, and we need to give each other grace when we don't deserve it. And so I am like I'm an acts of service girl, and he's a quality time girl. Quality time man.
Early man.
It works. And so I could never spend time with him, and I didn't get it. I'd be sitting there being like, let's do something. And we just had to really communicate our needs to each other. And first we had to get clear on our needs. The podcast, I opened with the story of where our therapist said, Mandy, what are the top 3 things you need from your husband? And I was like, he should know. And it was a cover up for the fact that
I love you right now. I can't do it.
And what that answer was a cover up for the fact that I didn't even know. I didn't even know what I needed. So how is it possible that he knew? So the start has been communicating our needs. And, you know, my husband and I, there's a local place here where we go and get foot massages and dinner. And literally, like, for anniversary, for any present, my mom
At
just—
the same time?
After. Typically we do foot massages first, and then we do the dinner after. Depending on it, we may swap around. But that's a new idea. No.
I mean, a 4th business for you.
Yeah, no. But and we found that it's the quality time that he needs, but I also feel like when we're going out to dinner, I like an activity. And so it's just getting really clear on that. And now with COVID and with everything going on now, we're not having that date time, but thankfully we quarantined with a nanny where we're saying, listen, hey, we need you X amount of time. And we like go for a hike. We go down to our cottage and, you know, rake leaves. Like, we just try to find time that we can still be together. And I'm completely honest, I don't have it on my priority list the way my husband does. And I know that's why God paired us together, is because he's like, honey, I haven't seen you in like 10 minutes. And I'm like, we just talked like 2 seconds ago. So not being afraid to voice and not being afraid to listen and to take action has been how we've really navigated dating each other, even within a crazy time.
That's sweet. That's so good. I married like myself. So we're like, it's been 24 hours. When are we having another date?
Like that. They are very much like that.
We totally are. And my kids know that it's Jesus first, it's God first. It's clearly my husband and me second, and they toggle on 3rd and 4th. They toggle depending on how much work we have to do. And, you know, so, and I think it's sweet because if we didn't go on a date, they would be like, what's wrong? What is wrong, you guys? Why aren't you dating? So even at night, we'll go now sit in the back. And Matthew, the 15-year-old, he'll come out and interrupt because he does, but they just kind of know it's their date time. And I think it's sweet. I think it's a great example.
But the truth is, you really do have to make it a point, because it doesn't just happen.
Nope.
There's so many other things that'll get in our way, and you don't really realize the benefit of it until you're a few months into it, doing it consistently. Like, because you're like, I don't know how to do this. Like, there was a point Eddie and I we truly didn't know how to date each other. We didn't know how to have a conversation that was about us and not schedule. You know, it was, it takes some practice, but definitely intentionality for sure.
You know what else is, I don't know if you do this with your husband, but another thing I'm really passionate about is my husband and I pray over each other before we go to bed. So like, you know, he'll thank God for me and say wonderful things over me. I'll thank God for him and say wonderful things over him. And then we'll pray for whatever we pray for. And that out loud prayer, it was really awkward at first, but that out loud prayer has just really transformed. Not that we needed a transformed marriage. We have a wonderful marriage, but it brought it to a whole nother level to bring that prayer out loud over each other.
I absolutely love that.
Do it.
Yeah, I definitely will.
The first day you're like, this is weird, but it feels real. It's really good. It's really strengthening. Well, I'm going to tell you, Kristen, I know that you and I probably feel the same way, but you are just a person I need to know better.
I know.
One day you have to come back on this podcast. Will you promise? Promise in front of the audience.
I promise in front of all of you, because I just want to spend more time with you two too. I love it.
Come take a sauna.
I know.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
Definitely. We need to. I mean, you're talking also to, it's April. What was it? May? No, it's April. It is April 30th in upstate New York, which is a challenging time. We're like almost to summer, but still rainy and yucky.
We're at 105. Like, the kids are about to go in the pool and it's hot.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know it is. Well, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for today. It was a pleasure. And thank you guys for watching. Share it. Tell everyone about Moms in Real Estate. And we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my